As you can see here, it says the power and creativity with code for a non-coding purpose. And the whole point of this menu plugin is to make sure that we can control the menu from the from Nesmaker alone. You only touch the code once, and then everything's controlled from here. So I have my file open. We're going to, let's make sure we're here. So I'm going to run here. You can see I have two things. You can ignore all this, but we're going to add it to another. File, the CBR I was working on earlier. But we got the auto text is off here, and then you have the user defined bytes. So I added the instructions here, but you don't have to add these instructions. In the plugin here, let's go to the plugin. In the plugin here and in the instructions, I have the chart right here. And you can use this as your reference when you're putting stuff in. Excuse me. So we're going to back to Nesmaker, close this. Let me show you the plugin in action real quick. Okay, so here's a menu right here. You have your arrow, you have your text box right here. These are some graphics around it, and a text box is here. And you can press A, it will confirm. And you have a menu in another location with graphics around it and some more options. And you see I have 4 items here. And if I press that, it goes to a screen where there's a sprite and a monster to show you that it actually works, and you can go to the game and whatnot. So what's happening here is that the process that Nesmaker goes through is that first it does a little bit of loading. What it goes through is called the extra screen load data. And the way I have the plugin set up, let's put this right here, a little box. Still want to show this. And let's go into the plugin. I have the folder set up just like Nesmaker. So we have 2 program files you have to update, and then we have 3 inputs that you have to add. Now you can see it says here add to, and the thing is that every system has its own extra screen load. It's usually around the game section. So we have the where is it at? Nope. It's a little hard to find. I thought it was in the game section. Of course it was. There it is. Extra screen load platform base. But if you go on Adventure, there'll be extra screen load Adventure and so on. So what I do here is that we replace it, but we'll do that with CBR, but I just want to show you what the code is doing. So we're going to edit this, and I'm going to probably, let's see the plugin one, add to. Nope, not this one either. One of these have the writing I did before. Let's see. Well, you know what? Now's a good time to do some writing on here. Oh, wait a second. Here's the writing right here. Okay, this is in the plugin. We're going to start from the top. And I'm going to have this here. So the first thing, there's 2 parts to this plugin. First is the very small auto text plugin that I got over here. Now in Nesmaker, you do have screen flags First, I'm going to go to project settings, and we're going to go to the overflow RAM. And there's two variables. Just keep pressing S and you'll eventually find them. You got screen flag 0 and screen flag 01. And these represent the screen info right here. You see I have screen flags here and screen flags 2. That's screen flag 0 and screen flags 01. Sorry for all this stuff you put on here. I was just planning the other effects or features I need to put in my game. So you can ignore all these. They don't even work right now, but they'll work later. But what we're paying attention is this, the auto text. Now, let's put this side to side. Excuse me. Okay, this is good enough. Okay, so we have our screen details here, and we have our code here. The first line is LDA screen flag 01. That loads the variable from screen flags into the accumulator. Then we take the accumulator and we do an AND to it. And lets you keep and remove bytes out of a number. Now, this is binary, so one number is equal to 8 bits. And these 8 bits represent these screen flags. 1 bit for the screen flags 1, and another, 1 byte for the screen flags 1 of 8 bits, and another byte for screen flags 2. That means all this is represented with just one number. So the thing is that if we try to read the number, we got to read everything, and we need to single out a number. So you see this AND sign we have here with the AND command. We have the zeros here and another 0 at the end and just 1 here. This drops all the other bits and keeps that one, which matches here with the auto text. As you can see, it's a 7th bit here, and then you have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We're checking the auto text. What I write is branch if equal, BEQ. Before it, you usually have a compare, but if you have no compare, it automatically drops to a check if it's equal to 0. So I'm checking if it equals to 0, which means that it's not checked. If I checked, it's a 1. If I don't check, it's a 0. And if it's not checked, it's just going to skip to the next label, which is skip to auto text. It goes right here and skips this draw box. Now, if it is checked, it's going to draw the box. This is a auto text thing. So what happens is that it runs text box. You know the text box in Nesmaker. This is the draw box here. It's going to run whatever you picked in your text entry here, and runs it without the menu. This is going to allow for a second feature I'll show you later. So that's the auto text feature. It's great for a lot of things. You can use it for cutscenes, or if you just need a screen and you want the text to come out. And then now all texts end here. We're going to go to the menu, and here is some instructions here on the user bytes. As you can see here, you can read here, you got your menu position, your menu size, your text entry, but we'll go through it. First, so now we got this. You see the menu here. I'm going to reset, look at it again. I reset it. You can see the text writes and then the cursor comes out, and then now you can move it down and up, and you can press A to confirm. So what's going on here first is that first we gotta load the game state. As you can see here in the Nesmaker file, we have game states. Game states just is just another number, and it allows you to use more different. Most importantly, it allows you to use different controls in the game states. Makes it easier to keep everything organized, and sometimes you don't want certain controls to run without having to add new programming or just very little programming. So you see here I got a menu. Game states are checked not by bitwise like the screen flags. It's checked just by 0 through 7. So keep that in mind. Before I thought it was checked by bits, and I always got the wrong results. So you got to check it from 1 to 7. Menu being the last one, well, 0 through 7. There's 8 of them, and we start with 0 and end up with 7. So here we load game state into the accumulator. This is while the system is starting up, before you even see this on the screen. So we load game state into the accumulator, and we check. See, now we got the CMP, which means compare. We compare it to the 8th game state, which is number 7 because it's a 0. Then if it's equal to that, if it's equal to 7, then we do the menu. We'll branch to the menu. If not, we'll just skip it. If it's not menu, it skips all this code and it goes straight to here. This is where it's going to skip to. It's not going to skip to these two because you can see there are other commands. It just goes here, the label, skip menu, skips the whole thing. Now, we got it equal, it's going to do the menu, and the first thing it does, it loads 0 to the accumulator and stores it to one of the screen triggers, number 26 to be exact. And the screen trigger 26 is actually the cursor place. So this code right here, I am setting up where the cursor is at. In the menu position, I squeeze X and Y together. And what happens is that it loads it here in a draw box. See, at the end, it'll draw the box. And then you see it has screen triggers 30 and 29. And those go right in there with the, right here. Wait, this is 30 and 28. Here it is, 29. Let's go at 30. Okay, yeah. After all the math is done, before I do the math, it's actually put into here. See, the thing, what I have to do is that, as you can see here, this load 0 into screen triggers 26. I'm just wiping it out. This is just a quick reset. When you need to reset a variable, you just load 0 into it and automatically resets it. The first thing I'm doing is I'm loading the user screen byte. The first one. User screen bytes are counted from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Not left to right. It's up and down. So I load the user screen byte, and the problem is I have 34 here, which represents the hex number 22. This is a decimal number 34. And I have 2 blocks to the left, from the left, and 2 blocks from the top. So if I go here and go to the show the grid, you can see I got the 1, 2, and then 1, 2. So it starts here, as you can see here. Starts right there, perfectly. These are run in meta tiles. The text window can only run in meta tiles. You can't control, it's the way the NES draws. It's the background, and it's like a graph, so you cannot draw the background. You cannot offset it by 1 pixel. So you have to draw it within these meta tiles. So this is 16 blocks wide, and I think 15 or 14 blocks tall. So that's pretty cool because I don't have enough user-defined bytes. I only have 8 of them. So I can store the X and Y position into 1 because each spot on the hex can go up to 16. We have a decimal base of 0 through 10, but with hex, it's a decimal base of 0 through 9, and then A through F. So 0 through F, so let's say if I got 34, but I want to use 16, I'll do like what? Maybe, I think it's 42. Let's see. A little more, 44. Nope, a little more, 47. There we go. See, I got a 2F. So I got 2 here, and F represents 16. And we go back to what it was, 34, right? Yeah. Excuse me. So we have the thing is though, I have 2 values in here. So I have to load the user screen byte into the accumulator, and then I have to AND it again. We did this before. I have to AND, I want to grab the X position, which is the first 2. So I have to drop the last bit, and now I get my 2, but this is going to look like a 20, and it's still going to be wrong. So now I have to shift that number right 4 times, and I get those bits into the last, the first 4 bits. because it goes from right to left. I know last video I did it wrong from the first, but it's confusing. But anyway, you see the bits are here on the number and it goes down 4 spots. So I get my 2 and then I store that into the screen triggers 30. So now down here in the draw box, I already got my screen trigger 30. And if you don't remember what I'm talking about, if I didn't talk about it yet, we're going to go to the scripts and we go to define scripts and we're going to go to the draw box, which is right here. And you can see argument 0, X value in meta tiles. So that goes here and controls the X value. And meta tiles, a meta tile is an 8x8 square. Then Y value in meta tiles. And then the width and the height, that's the size I put in here. And then the trigger, the entry. Excuse me. So right here, let's get back. We was on the position. We was on the X position. And that is the X position was the position of the menu in meta tiles. But see this arrow here? It's a sprite. This arrow is a sprite. And in sprites, they're not like tiles. They can be moved anywhere on the screen. So the problem is now I have to figure out how I'm going to get a number between 0 to 256. And I don't want to waste more bits. I don't have enough. So we're going to do a little math to get that cursor here. So I can see, remember I load the user screen byte and then I move it over and I store it into screen triggers 30. That's going to be my base number for the X part of the menu. Now I load 1 into the X register. This resets my X register to a 1. I want to count from 1 because it's kind of confusing counting from 0. It's always confusing counting to 0. So this is my loop X position math thing. Basically, I made a loop to do my multiplication. What I'm doing here is that I first clear the carry. The carry flag. There are flags in the NES that detects things. If I'm adding numbers, right? And the highest number is 255. If I go over 255, the number will wrap around and the carry flag is set. It's letting you know that, hey, you just went over 255. And at least it keeps track of that. So now you know that you're over 255. So you have to clear it, or else your math might be wrong, and you might have a clear someplace else, and then you get some problems. So you always have to clear the carry flag before you add. Now this is the ADC, so it's add to accumulator, so it adds whatever variable I have to accumulator. I just stored the number 2 into screen triggers 30, so I'm using that number 2 again, the same number. And so I'm adding it. I add it once. So we had a 2, and I'm adding a 2, and you know you're going to get 4. So I increase the X register by 1. So after it's done, it increases the X register, it becomes a 2. So now you know 2 times 2 equals 4. So that's why I wanted to start on 1. I don't want to start on 0 because it just makes the math very confusing. But here it seems more logical, of course. So now I want to multiply it by 16 because for the tiles, 8 goes into 16 times. So I grab the calculator and I put 8 times 16. No. I got 128. That's weird. 16 times 8. Oh, wait a second. I am confusing myself. 16 times 16 is 256. Yeah, I forgot there's 16 across. And each one is 8. When I got 16 across and there's 8 pixels, why am I getting 128 from there? Oh. Sorry, actually each box is 16 by 16. I messed up. A meta tile is 16 by 16. I thought it was 8 by 8. See, so this is how crazy Nesmaker can get. This is how crazy I can get when I'm doing a million things. So it's actually 16. That's what's messed up. So 16 times 16 is 256. That's why I multiplied by 16. So this loop, it goes to compare to 16. If it's equal to 16, register X, it knows it multiplied by 16 times. It's going to say loop is done, and it's going to go down here. If it doesn't, it's going to jump back to this loop again and do the code over and over again. Just like multiplication, it keeps adding the groups. So if I do 2 times 16, I get 32. With 0, that should be 31 on the X. So we go back here and grab the PP viewer, the PPU viewer again. Go to Sprite viewer. There we go. Position 31. It's 32, but remember we start from 0. So that's how I get the position of the arrow here. So, excuse me. So the loop is done. And then I also, whatever number I get from here, I do clear the 0 flag. This is another flag. The 0 flag is, I could be wrong. It could be negative flag or whatnot. I have to find out. But anyway, this flag for the SEC, you also have to put it in because it detects when you subtract and the number is less than 0. So you got to clear that flag before you do any subtraction. I subtract 8, and then I store it into screen triggers 28. And the screen triggers 28 is the cursor X position. So that's my little padding right here. You can edit this number if you want to change the padding, if it's too close. So change this number to control padding. And then I store it there to 28. Now the Y position is the same thing, except this time I have to grab the second 2 over here for the Y position. So all I have to do is clear the first 4 bits and then I get my 2. I don't have to move anything around because it's already in the right spot. I do the same thing, I store it. I reset my X reference for register for reference. I do the multiplication thing, same loop, multiplying by 16. Loop is done. I put it into screen triggers 27, which controls the Y position. Also, I do have screen triggers 26, that's the cursor place, but before we get to that, so here's the reset here. I have to reset this because that's the user place, and I'll tell you a little bit more. Before we get there, let's see the rest of the code. So loop is done. Now I am using a screen byte 1, which is the menu size. So now I got to cut them up too. So I got to do the same thing, cut the first one to get the first size here. As you can see, 68 is a hex of 44, and that is the size over here. So if I just do a random size like 98, and I get 62, actually let's get that a little higher, so 104, 68. I'm going to export the ROM again, and it's going to reset that emulator. You're going to see now the box is bigger than the graphic I put. So now I got this nasty looking box here. But you can see that's a feature I put. I put a feature to control the box. So I got a 6.8. I have to cut the 6 and then move it right down so I can get a 6 and then store it at screen triggers 24, which is the size. I think did not put it. Yeah, here it is. Screen trigger 24, which is the text box width. And you got screen triggers 23, which is the text box height. So that's done, and boom, all I gotta do is load the byte again and remove the first 4 bits, and I got my wipe size as well. Now, this is a fail-safe here. There's a fail-safe switch. If auto text is on, it still skips the menu. This way, because if you try to turn both on, it will just be glitched and buggy. So I just put a fail-safe here, just in case you use the auto text, you know, and you don't want to use the menu, but you still have the menu active for whatever reason, it'll just write over it. It'll just skip. And we continue menu, and we just make sure that the user byte 2, this is user byte 2 right here. It checks if it's 0. You see I have 0 to disable. Maybe you don't want to use the text box. You just want the cursor place, and you want to use graphics for your menu. So I put that feature in as well, and we're going to see that in action. And then we draw the box. All the numbers are here, and it takes it from the, from all these values, and then it controls the box. And that's it for the code there, for that code right there. So like I said, it loads everything in. This is all the loading part, and it goes in. Now the next part we need to do is, how does the cursor get there? So you got that extra screen load platform base. So we're gonna go back here. Now we got the subroutines, and we have the add to do sprite draw. You see in Nesmaker, this is when it says add to, you have to add the code to your file that's next to it. You just can't replace the file. It's not gonna work. So in Nesmaker, you also have and don't worry, we're gonna install all this. I'm gonna show you how to install it, because we're gonna do that for the other game. So in the script settings, we do have, in the game area again, we do have Sprite Pre-Draw. And, okay, it must be over here. Yeah. And the Sprite Pre-Draw here is for the Metrovania. So you can see as it includes Sprite HUD. So we're gonna add it under here. We blank and we add it under here. So this checks for the menu as well, and it will control so you can draw the cursor. So what's happening here? Let me just make sure. Okay. Okay, so what is happening here is that you have the cursor. This is the sprite draw area, and this controls the code where you want to draw your own sprites. We're using the draw sprite macro. And if I go back to define scripts, and we go to the draw sprite, this allows you to draw anything. And so you can draw, you have the X, the Y, and you have the char table value and the attribute data. The char table value is just what sprite you want in the RAM. So you go here, you got your sprite viewer, there's this, you got your character viewer, and here's all your sprites. And I'm drawing 3F. And we have, but look at this right here. I have cursor sprite. This is a constant. You can go to project settings and add your own constants here, which we're gonna put that in instructions. I'm gonna build a text file for it, and I'll probably use screenshots too. I'm gonna build that later today. So I have 2 constants here. These are default constants that come with Nesmaker. I have a cursor sprite, so you can put your sprite here, wherever sprite you want for the cursor. And then you have menu line spacing. I don't know if I'm using that. Oh, yeah, I am using that. I forgot. Menu line spacing is that controls the spacing here. So if I move down, it's actually skipping 2 rows of 8 pixels, 16. So maybe you want it to get more closer together, and that will control your menus. It's up to you what you want to do. So you can control the spacing too. But that comes in the controls, which I'll show you later. So what's happening here is that I am checking for menu again. I am loading variable into accumulator. I still don't know if I'm spelling that right. And then checking for eighth game state. If equal, branch to label, and the label is do menu cursor. So if it is, it's going to do it. If not, it's going to just skip that line and go straight to the jump. And it's going to jump to label, which is skip menu cursor. So look at that. Skip menu cursor, doesn't do it. And then I have so we're going to do the menu cursor, and right now it loads screen triggers 31. And this was for a timer, which I'm not using anymore. I have it there just in case. I'm using the screen trigger as a timer. I did have delay, but I did something even better, which you see right here. So we're going to delete this. And then we have skip menu cursor. We got skip delay. We're going to delete this too. Okay, now this is the game status byte. I don't want to get into it too much, but when it's writing, let's do it in slow motion. I'm going to reset here. Look at this. There's no cursor. It's going to come out after it's done writing. This is pretty cool. So if you have a big paragraph, I set it up so none of the controls and the cursor will not come out until it's done writing. So when it's writing, the game status byte, this bit will become 1, so I check for that. And if it does, it just skips the menu cursor. So that's another check, just 2 checks. So when it's done, then it'll go back up here and realize, okay, the game status byte is off, it's safe. Let's draw the sprite. So again, it's the same thing. You're loading variable in accumulator. Then we are checking. We are on keeping the 7th bit only. And then if this is BNE, if not equal, and there's no compare, so if not equal to 0, jump to label. Skip menu cursor here. And now here's the draw sprite thing. So we have screen triggers 28, which I did the math in the loading. Remember that math was set up. Oh, I got so many windows. It doesn't matter anyway, it's all the same. So that math is set up in the math I did here. You see the loop. I loop all this and I store it into screen triggers 28, and then I do the Y position and I store that into screen triggers 29. So many files. So this is it? Yeah. So you see screen triggers 28, X, screen triggers 27, that's the Y. Cursor sprite is 63. So again, it's still here? Yeah. Again, here it is, 63 right here, or in hex is 3F. That's the cursor I wanted to use. And then the attributes. Okay, let me find out. I have notes on the attributes. It's very confusing. So let's see if I have it here. You can ignore the code here, and no, I do not have it here. Let's try debug. Here it is. I'm gonna put it there because it's pretty cool. So, oh, that's the controls. We'll come back later. Okay. So when you do the draw sprite and you need the attribute data is handled by all these bits. You want to do it this way. You don't want to use a 1 or a 2. I mean, you can do simple stuff probably, but let me show you. Okay, so let's stretch this out. All right, so the first bit and the second bit. Oh, I put 0 and 1. But anyway, these two bits right here, let's make this easier to read. So the first and second bit controls the palette that you're going to use. So if I want to use the second palette, I will press 0, 1. And let's make sure what my palette is. So I'm going to go here, screen info. Demon says, here's monster palette 0. I'm going to change it. All right, so my arrow should be a weird color when I try it. It should be at least red or blue or whatnot. I did save. I did not save. So no change is going to happen because I forgot to save the file. So it's still going to be red at slow motion. Let's speed that up. Still red. Now let's export it with the save file. Oh, I got an error. Do Sprite Draw ASM 9 unload label. So I have a problem. So I'm going to go here. We go to 9. Do menu cursor. I deleted my thing by accident, so it doesn't know where to jump. Where I was supposed to jump at was right here. So we're going to do menu cursor here. I messed that up. Now I shouldn't complain no more. And this happens all the time. You're always going to make this mistake. You can't do this perfectly. It's so much stuff to keep track of. Now it's working. Look, my cursor is blue. That's because I have the 0, 1 here. This is binary, so there's only 0 and 1s. So I want the third one. If I want the third palette, it'll be 10. I want the fourth palette, it'll be 11. It still represents 0 through 4. But this is pretty cool because like you can have you can put a couple of numbers in here with the binary and stuff. So I'm going to go back to 0. Now, the fifth bit, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't think 3 and 4 does anything. There's some blank bits in here, and that's pretty crazy. All right, so the fifth bit is fifth bit. Say that 3 times fast. Is the layer priority. I can't really show you what's going on, but it puts it in the background or in the foreground. This is the background color, so it won't make no difference if I change that. 6-bit is the horizontal flip. So let's change that. I gotta be careful. Actually, I put first and second, and this is like the 8th. Very annoying. So I don't want to confuse you guys. So we're gonna do 8th, 7th, and 6th. Hopefully that I change this 1 here, that it should flip the cursor facing the other way. So let's save it. Let's export and test. And there you go. You can see that the cursor has been mirrored. Now it goes the other way because this bit is on. Now if I turn this bit on, it should be upside down but facing the right way. But except it's upside down. Actually, you know what? It's going to work, but you're not going to see a difference. You can see a little difference because it's a little bit higher than usual, but it's upside. Actually, you can see it's upside down because the shadow is on top instead of the bottom. So that flips it upside down. So those are the sprite attributes. The rest of them are just blank. You control vertical flip, horizontal flip, the layer priority, if it goes behind the background colors or not, and then the sprite palette. And that's about it. If I'm missing anything, just let me know in the comments. I don't think I'm missing nothing with there, but that's the most I use. So we have that, and that's pretty much it. This small line of code, which I keep cleaning up, I'll have it, I'll have it finalized for the download. But this code controls the drawing of the cursor in every frame. Where is this located, do you ask? It is located in bank 18. So if we go to script settings, okay, so we got we have bank 18. This is the overflow logic. And see, look, include Sprite Pre-Draw and include Sprite Post-Draw. This is the bank where you put all your extra code in that you're going to put in Nesmaker. And this whole bank runs every single frame. So you can do many things with it. You can run timers in here. You can do graphics in here. You can also do more checks in here. And you got to be careful. You got to really optimize it because this runs every frame. So the more code you put in here, the longer it, more processing power it takes and could slow down everything. But of course, if you're only using the code for a certain part, which is the menu, and usually menus have no gameplay, then you can do whatever you want, just as long as you skip that code when you go into gameplay or something else. So this code goes right into bank 18, which you don't have to set up because it's part of the do Sprite Pre-Draw. And I could make a shortcut to another file, but it is kind of too much. So that's why you should put these green lines here. That way you can keep track of what's going on. I like to put the menu here and the menu end. I might do menu start, but then again, you already know the menu is going to be here. Ain't going to be anything called. There ain't going to be anything called anything else. Excuse me. Sheesh. There's not going to be anything else called menu. So we have the excuse me. We have the menu here, and then we have the menu end. That's the way you should. I recommend writing a code, so you don't have to have a whole bunch of files or have to keep adding the files here. It's up to you. I tried both ways, and I like this way better, especially you have hundreds of files already stacked up in Nesmaker. So those are the two pieces of code. Oh, we have to save this. These are the two pieces of code that you have to put in the plugin. We're gonna start from the beginning to put them in, but I'm just showing you how the plugin works. So the next part is the controls. If you can see my controller here, right here, I'm pressing down and it moves the cursor down. I'm pressing up and it goes up. And then I'm pressing A and it confirms. And I'm back to the menu again. But you can see I got 4 items here. I go back, I got 3 items here. And my cursor is upside down. I didn't render the game or export it. So I have number of items here. There's no more text mode, so let's clear that up. I was doing other code and I did the failsafe. I didn't need to do that anymore. So we can go to project, and here's a cool feature in Nesmaker. You can rename aspects of your Nesmaker. So if I go to screen bytes, go here. So we're gonna put number of items. And it starts from 0. So keep that in mind. So if you got 3 items, it's a 2. You got 4 items, it's a 3. So I have a 2 here. And this is where you go to the first installable scripts, input, menu. These are my menu buttons. These are installable. You put them in, and then you go to your input editor, and then you put them in. You click your menu and you pick the controller you want. Confirm, cursor down. So we have, you press down, this cursor down, and then press up, cursor up, and then A, confirm. So let's check through these controls real quick. They're very simple code. Here is the cursor down code. So the first thing we have to check, I'll put check for menu, but you know what? It checks for the 7th game status byte, which is the text rendering. These controls will not work if the text is rendering. And you know already, if equal jumps, oh, I got ahead of myself. You know here, again I got ahead of myself. Loads game state to accumulator, and then we check for the 7th game status byte. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Loads game status byte to accumulator. Then we check for the 7th game status byte, which is the text rendering. If not rendering, do the control. Oh, if not rendering, enable controls. I'm doing a different type of writing now because you guys should be used to the other stuff I'm typing. If not rendering, enable controls. I don't know if I should do that. I think I won't. If not equal, jump to label. But it's just basically this whole little spot here. If not rendering, it'll skip, and then they'll RTS, that's return to subroutine. That ends the controller. You need to always end your control inputs of a RTS. If not, it will start jumping to the next because all these controllers are in order. So that's very important. So if cursor down didn't have an RTS, it will automatically start doing the cursor up. And if that didn't have an RTS, it will do the confirm. So RTS is return to subroutine. So I don't want to do this. So I'm not going to jump down here and do a skip. That's for this code here. I just want to just end it real quick because it's still rendering. Don't do nothing. But if it's not, go to continue. That's my label here. You can see there's a plus next to the continue. This allows you to reuse the continue as many times as you want, but you got to be careful. I try to play it safe and not use too much of it. So in case I get a bug from that it's jumping to a place it's not supposed to because I'm using the same label, you just kind of play it safe and do different labels, but I'm using continue here for now. So if you need to use it over and over again, other coding, you use a plus. It jumps from here to here, so you would not have any problems. Now I load screen triggers 26, that's the cursor place, that's all the math I did, and it goes into that screen trigger, and it loads that cursor place into the accumulator. This is cursor down, so it compares to number of items. I'm doing the code thing again, but screw it. Let's just go ahead and go with it. It's just so much code. Maybe you can go back and forth and understand. If equal, skip to label, or branch to label, or jump to label, whatever, you know. If not, it's going to load the Y position. And it's going to this loads the cursor right into accumulator. And then we got to clear the carry, as you remember. It's very important. clears the carry flag, and then it adds line spacing. Now look, I'm not using a number, I'm using the constant. When you use a constant, you put the number sign. This is pretty awesome because now you can even add labels. I can add screen triggers, as you saw I did with the math. So now we got menu line spacing. We're going to adds, I put this or it's going to be an error, adds constant to accumulator. Then we store it. Then it stores accumulator to variable. So what I'm doing, I'm basically adding it. It's confirmed, so I can add 16, and then when the code runs every frame, it goes and checks, says, oh, it's a different number. Now it goes down. So first it is, so first it's 31. Oh, I read the wrong number. I made a mistake. You have 32 as the X position, and then I subtract 8 as my spacing, and it becomes a 24. So that's where I get the 24 from. The 31 is actually the Y position, and it was very confusing because they both match number 2, and it's a 32, 32. So the position is 31. It's supposed to be 32, but for some reason, NES pushes your sprites up by 1 pixel. You can solve this, but you just work with it. You don't want to add any more processing power as much as it is already. It's just too much. So 31, if I press down, it goes down. I added 16, and then I get a 47. And I go down again, it adds, and it's a 63. Now I press down again, it's not going to go down anymore. Why? Because it matches the items. 2, 3 items. 2, it matches 2, it's just going to keep skipping, and look, I can't go down anymore. And that solves my problem of having different menus with different number of items. So if I go here, it loads new position and everything. It does the cursor with the position. I got 95. I go down, add 16. 111, go down, add another 16. 127, go down, add another 16. 143, and I can't go down anymore, because here's the screen right here, and I have a 3 in the number of items, and I have a 254. I didn't show you this before, so you use the text entries. Again, see, I can write everything in Nesmaker. You don't have to touch the code anymore after you install all this. So we go to 255. Also keep in mind, there's only 255 text entries. You cannot use 256 all the way down to 512. You have to set that up yourself. So those are not going to work. The highest is 255. There's 256 because we start at entry 0, not 1. So you see I have start continue options here, and I have new game, continue gallery, and back over here. This is why it's loading. It's loading 254. That means if I go over here, there should be a 254 at the text entry, and there it is, 254. So this little nifty plugin lets you control the position of the menu, the size of the menu, so you can put nice graphics around it, and you can just type in the menu yourself. You don't have to do no coding after you put that in. You're doing basic coding, but it's here in these numbers, which is pretty cool. So after that, I increase the screen trigger 26. Okay. I just messed up again in the code, and this, this is normal. I messed up 100 lines of code. Oh, no, this is correct. Okay, loads cursor place into accumulator. That's the cursor place, 26. And then it adds it in there. Now it's going to increase cursor place by 1. So the cursor place is a number that's here. It loads in, it's actually what I reset to 0. So if you go here, as you can see, 0 right here. I'm resetting the cursor place right here. That's all I'm doing. I'm loading 0 in the screen trigger. So the cursor place will always be 0, and it'll be on the first one. So that's why I have the I load the cursor screen there. And then when you press down, it'll increase it, and it'll be 1, and then 2, and then 3, and bam, 3 equals this 3, and it will not go anymore. Increase cursor place by 1, and then we're done. Now we go to cursor up. Same thing. Loads game status. It checks the 7th byte for rendering. If it's not equal, it jumps to the label. If not, returns to subroutine. Let's just put back to regular code. It'll go back where it was at. Then we have the continue. You can see I have the plus here, so I can use it more than once. So now we're gonna load the cursor place to accumulator. It was so tiring typing all this. I hope you guys are understanding this. I don't know any other way to do it. This time it compares 0 because 0 is the top, is the first entry. Now, I made a mistake here. I don't need this 0. So I'm going to delete that. I have BQ. That means if it's 0, it skips. So if equal to 0, jump to label. And you can see I got a plus sign with skip, so I can use skip again on both of these codes. Now I'm going to load cursor Y position to accumulator. I'm going to clear 0 flag. I hope it's not a negative flag. If I'm wrong, please let me know. I'll figure it out later. But it clears the stupid flag for the subtraction. You need to do that before you subtracting. Subtracts menu line spacing. We're subtracting, so I go up. Bam, it subtracts. 127, go up again. Subtract 16. 111, go up again. Subtracts line space for 16. 95. And now it's 0. You can't see it, but it's actually 0, and I can't move up anymore. So that's what stops it from going up and down when you have different items and stuff. Also, let you know that, oh yeah, we'll go there later. Now I store it to screen triggers 27. From accumulator. I spelled that wrong. Do we have accumulator ready? Yes, we do. Now we stores accumulator to variable. Gonna enter that. Decreases cursor by 1. Excuse me, and we're done. So basically, that's what you saw. You got cursor down, it moves it, and it checks for the number of items and stops. And then you have cursor up, it moves it up, and checks the number of items and it stops. Now the final control is confirm. Confirm is you press A, it goes back to the next one, and it checks where it's going to go, if it goes to another menu or it goes to the gameplay. So I'll put new game, and boom, I have the gameplay. So here you can have up to 5 warps. The first warp is here in your warp info, Then you have warp 2, warp 3, warp 4, and warp 5. And the chart will let you know warp info is the first warp. So make sure that this is your first warp, your first choice, 0. So you can have up to 5 items. You can put as many items as you want, but there's not enough warps. So the limit is basically 5 items. Did I type this in? Oh boy. Okay. So I'm loading game status byte again because I don't want this to work when the text is writing. So I'm pressing A like crazy. It doesn't work until until the text is finished. So you can see that. Now I can do it. It stops you from breaking the game or doing some stupid stuff or having any bugs happening. Thanks to Nesmaker's text box and the game status byte. My hands are tired from typing. And this is the second time I'm doing it. It's very annoying, but what you're gonna do, right? This is how crazy Nesmaker is. And I'm trying to keep track of all this and it's just hard. And you just gotta deal with it. So I'm just finding the best way. This is my 3rd attempt. I spent the last 2 years coding, and this is my 3rd attempt at cleaning my code and realizing that I don't need a whole bunch of things to go crazy. So I wanted to make it easier that you just install and it just works in case you have to make several games, you know, or just like 1 or 2 or 3 games. So I think this menu is going to help you a lot. So we're in the confirm right now. We're going to return to subroutine. Then we go to, if it's not rendering the text, we can continue and do it. So it's going to check for the menu item place. Now it's going to check, is it 0? Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? So we got warp 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's the 5 warps. So we're going to do check for 0. Oh, crap. I need tab. And then jumps to warp 0. Oh boy. Oops, something happened here. I almost messed up the code. Checks for 0. Oh, I forgot. It's already checking for 0 and jumping at the same time. Because this is 0, checks for 0 and jumps to warp 0. Equal, jumps to warp 0. Checks for 1. Check for 2. Check for 3. And you see here, there's no compare. Obviously, the 4th warp is the last one. That's the 5th warp. If it doesn't equal any of those, there's no reason to check. We just know that, okay, just go to the last warp. So you don't want to waste any lines of code. You don't want to do another compare because there's no other warps. So sometimes you just want to do that. It's not 3. So obviously it's not all of these. It's got to be the last one, 4. So you just go straight to 4. This is also safe in case, I don't know, something happens or whatnot. You end up with a warp 5 because of a bug for some reason, and it'll fail safe straight to the last warp. Now we got if equal. Gonna need that column, whatever that thing is there. Hey, you gotta be kidding! What is that? Oh. All right, if equal, jump to warp 1. If equal, jump to warp 2. If equal, jump to warp 3. If equal, jump to warp 4. So now, here's the warps here. All it does is it loads the warp to screen, and then it stores it into trigger 25. This is 0, so it's going to go here. And let's go to the warp screen. Define scripts, warp to screen. And you can see here that when you warp, you can, the first one is the map 1 to 2. So the problem is I do not have a variable to choose what map you want to jump to for the different warps. So all the time it's just going to take the whatever is here, it's going to eat that, whatever is here. So be careful about that. I didn't have another byte to control that warp. But then again, you guys would probably figure it out. If you really need to, if you need to get to another warp, maybe you should, I don't know, just move your screens on and make sure it works. For me, I'm actually removing most of the underworld. I might remove all of it so I can have extra graphic room. But it'll read from here whether you want to warp out to the underworld or not. And then you got your warps over here. So, excuse me. So back to the warp to screen. So we pick warp what to map. Then the screen to warp to. So first, I'm using the warp to screen here and storing the screen triggers in 25 and going to finish. It'll take care of the rest here. As you can see, it says warp map here and current name table. And that's the argument 1 here, screen to warp to, that's the current name table. So I don't touch that. But here, I have here it is. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the warp to screen into Nesmaker and I'm putting into screen triggers 25. Because I got the warp to screen down here. I put in the screen triggers 25. So all these grabs the user screen bytes except the 0, which grabs the Nesmaker one, which is called warp to screen. As you can see let's put current name table. Anyway, so it's called warp to screen. That is that's where you get the current warp setting for Nesmaker. Warp 1 uses screen byte 4, as you can see here. See, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the next one is 5, 6, and then 7, the last one. See, all of them jump to the finish. I am not gonna. Let's go ahead. So this loads in Nesmaker's warp setting. So now you can see with this, I added more warps to one screen instead of just the one warp you get with Nesmaker. So this loads in the Nesmaker's warp setting. Stores into variable. Jumps to label. Finish. Loads to accumulator. Loads warp variable to accumulator. Now, boy, I am so tired right now, and it's only like 2:49 in the afternoon, and it's snowing outside. Okay, so we got, it loads the variable, it stores it, it loads the variable and stores it in, reads it, stores into the right spot for the warp, and then it jumps to the finish group. There's no jump here because it's already here, so you don't have to add a jump unless you go do more code. So now here's the magic here. Now you can see here, we could do it in slow motion. I press A, screen turns black, and then it loads to the next area. So what happens here first, the first thing it does, it loads, first it does a reset on the placement. I got another reset here just in case. I don't know if I really need it or not, but just to be sure, I'm gonna put it safe there. Because, you know, I may not need that. Okay, here's a cool trick. If you want to check if something is working or not, you gotta test stealth, which is like 1,000,000 times. Use the code, use that semicolon here, and now you can cancel these out. Now I'm gonna save it and see if I actually do need it. I'm gonna export again. It's gonna start on the first screen where the player was at. Okay, let's see if I actually do need it. Oh, as you can see, I do need it. I went to start. Oh no, I guess I don't. I thought it was there. See what happens if I do this. I guess I don't need it. I'm going to different screens like crazy. Excuse me. I'm going to go back into screen info and do some more testing. We got to make sure that the testing works. So we got 2 here. This goes 1 0. I need a 1. I think I do need a 1 0 here. XY. Let's try 1. I think it's backwards. They got the XY here or here, but let's see what happens. I might actually have it backwards. So I guess I could have sworn it was messed up. I don't know if I need it. It looks like I don't need it because in the extra screen load data, it already resets here, and that's more important. So I do not need it. But if anything, if I run into any problems, just in case for now, I'm gonna do some more testing. If I don't need it, I'll delete it. But it's not gonna render, so we don't have to worry. I'll leave it like that. So the first thing it does, it loads a 0F to the first back pal. As you can see, 0F is black. This is the good black. Don't touch any of these. You want this shade of black. 0F. One of these mess up the TV. I forgot which one it was. It could be a 0D. I think it's 0D. That really messes up your old CRTV, which is what a particular game had. I forgot what it was called. I forgot the game, but it was a game that you put in certain CRTs were just messed up. So the solution was to use a Game Genie and switch its color to a 0F to get the game to work again. And that was horrible. What are you gonna do, right? But it's cool. We found some solutions. And then the back pal. So you're learning a little bit about the palette information. So in the overflow RAM, you have back pal here, and it's 1 through 16. There's not 16 back pals, but because there's like 4 colors right here, but you can see like the background color is shared, so there's only really 12 colors. But they use a code to skip through all that easily from 0 to 16. But if you don't have enough room, sometimes you just want to go 1 by 1 with the 12. You'll learn more of that later with palette swapping. So we're forcing a black onto the menu. If you don't want it, you can turn it off. If you don't want black, okay, fine, just turn it off. And update screen data. We're loading a 1 into the update screen data. That updates the background color. But let's say you don't want that. You don't want the black. We'll just save that. And then we'll export and test. And now it should stay the color that I was last in, which is blue. So now I press it, it stays blue. The light blue was the background color, so it stays that. So I just add that there. So what I can do here is changes background color to black. That represents the whole thing. And the update screen data, we're trying to figure that more out. Let me go to project settings and see if it was written out in Nesmaker. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. 0 palettes, 1 tiles, and 2 attributes. This is old. I don't know if this is it. I think it's old because to me, what I was using was the background palettes. The second bit was the sprite palettes. And the third, I think, was the scrolling. So this is pretty old. I'll get more back to that later. But anyway, you put a 1 here for the background color. And you change it to black. And the warp handles everything else. It erases everything for you. Excuse me. So that changes the background to black. Now the warp to screen, we're going to warp to map. That grabs it from the Nesmaker. That's the warp to map, the default map. Screen triggers 25 is wherever gets load from these warps. And then that's the transition, which I don't know much about the transitions or what it does. Just in case, let's just look and see if there's anything there. It's up here. Most likely use a 1. Oh, warp, where it observes the warp in the position of the player. So we'll get more into that later, but what I'm guessing here, which is likely the obvious thing, is that if you keep it as a 1, the player warps with its own position. If you keep it as a 0, it'll probably warp wherever position that we pick. That's pretty cool. Okay, so we got that. It's going to warp. And in here, this is very important. I wrote here, as you can see, clears text handler and clears the queue. If the text gets interrupted, you want to clear it because the text can keep running to the next screen or glitch up or anything. So you want to make sure you clear everything. So these 3 lines of code will clear the text. It loads a 0 here and then resets the text handler, resets the text queue. That way it can refresh itself on the next screen. This here, this waits for 1 screen. Without it, the screen will not turn black. So if I get rid of it, it's just a delay. It's just a 1 frame delay, and it's great for a lot of things, especially if you have to do some stuff. So if I go to it, see, now I can do the black. And look, some more problems happen too. Wow. Look at that, I didn't even get a chance to do anything. So it leads to a lot of problems. So just by doing that delay frame, it makes sure all the code gets done. See, and then everything properly goes around. So you do need that JSR do wait frame. So when you're doing a lot of coding, sometimes things get messed up. If you don't want no code to overlap, delay it. Delay 1 frame, and it makes a huge difference. Now it loads the game status byte. It needs this because without it, the objects will not appear during gameplay. So we're interrupting the text. Usually when you talk to somebody, the text would close down and reset everything. But now we're interrupting the text not to close. So we go here, go new game, and this forces the bit that I was supposed to flip for the objects to come back. So if I don't have this, then we try it again. And look what happens. I go to start, I go to new game, and the objects don't appear because we interrupted the whole text process. So it's important when you're doing like cutscenes and you want to skip the text, but you want to, so you got to clear text, you got to wait for the frame, and you got to do the game status byte. It says this will skip object handling but actually this will turn object handling back on. And then we return a subroutine. And that's it. That's the whole menu plugin. It's just 5 files. 3 of them you could just drop in. These are controls I created for you. And then 2 of them you have to put the code in your own code yourself. And we're going to do that. So let's move on to the next step. Now we're going to install the plugin to a new game file.